Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a really powerful theological argument, one that tries to explain the human condition. The ancient text we're looking at calls it the problem of sin.
And this quote you're looking at, it is basically the key to unlocking this whole thing. I mean, it just makes sense, right? You can't really appreciate a cure if you don't first understand the disease you're dealing with.
So, if we're going to stick with that analogy, before we even start talking about a cure, we've got to diagnose the disease. And according to the source material we're looking at, that diagnosis, well, it comes down to one single powerful word: sin. Okay, so sin. I mean, that word gets thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean? Within this specific theological framework. Well, the source material gives us a surprisingly detailed picture, and it uses 4 distinct ideas to build it. First up, we've got a concept from the Greek word hamartia, and what it literally means is to miss the mark. Think of an archer, right? They pull back the bow, they let the arrow fly, and it just falls short of the target. Now, according to this view, it's not just about messing up occasionally. No, it's about a fundamental inability to ever hit God's perfect standard. Then, the next layer is this idea of anomia, which just means lawlessness. And this is important because it makes the problem objective. We're not just talking about a subjective feeling, like feeling guilty. We're talking about the actual concrete act of breaking an external, revealed standard, God's law. From there, the definition gets even bigger with the concept of adikia, or unrighteousness. And this is a huge step. It suggests that sin isn't just about breaking the rules. It's about deviating from the very nature, the very character of the one who made the rules in the first place. And finally, the last piece of this puzzle is the idea of debt. The idea here is that sin creates this moral obligation, this bill that has to be paid. And the source text is really clear on this. We're not talking about a small debt. It's presented as something so massive, so astronomical, that the person who owes it has absolutely zero chance of ever paying it back on their own. So the big question is, how did this whole missing the mark thing even start? Well, the text traces it all back to a single event known as the fall. And it unfolds in this really clear 3-step pattern. First, there's deception. God's command and his character get twisted. That lie then sparks a desire for the one thing that was off limits. And as you can probably guess, that desire ultimately leads to disobedience, which is the final act that breaks the relationship. And the consequence of all this? The text uses a pretty heavy word, death. But listen, it's not just talking about physical death here. The source defines it as separation from the very source of life itself. It's like, imagine a branch being cut off from the vine. It's going to wither and die, right? It's been disconnected from its life source. That's the picture being painted here. Okay, so if sin is the disease, what was the first prescription? What was the first attempt at a remedy? According to the source, it was something called the law. But, and this is a really critical point the text makes, the law was never actually intended to be the cure. The reason is pretty straightforward. The law itself, it's perfect, it's holy, it's just, it's good. The problem was never the standard. The problem was our complete inability to live up to it.
So instead of a cure, the law is described as functioning more like a mirror. And that's a great analogy, right? A mirror is fantastic at showing you that you've got dirt on your face. It gives you a perfect, flawless diagnosis of the problem. But what can a mirror not do? It has absolutely zero power to actually wash you clean.
It also plays another role, what the text calls a schoolmaster, which comes from the Greek word pedagogos. Now, back in the ancient world, this person wasn't the actual teacher. They were a guardian, a chaperone, whose entire job was to get the child to the teacher safely. And that's exactly how the law is supposed to work here. Its job is to convict us, to show us how much we need help, and then drive us straight to the actual solution. So you see the logic. By giving us this perfect, impossible-to-keep standard, the law basically prepares us. It sets the stage for the true remedy. And that remedy, according to the text, comes in the form of a new covenant. And this new covenant is presented as a total upgrade from the old system. So think of it like this. The old way was based on the blood of animals, which only covered sin temporarily, right? It had to be repeated year after year. The new way is based on a single, permanent sacrifice that actually removes sin once and for all. And maybe the biggest change of all, the law moves from being this external thing written on stone tablets to something written internally, right on the human heart. So what's the fuel for this whole new system? What makes it work? It's a single concept: grace. And grace, it comes from the Greek word charis. is defined as pretty much the exact opposite of a wage or a reward. It's unmerited, it's unearned, it's undeserved favor from God. But simply, it's a totally free gift given to people who, by all accounts, deserve the complete opposite. And that's the whole point right there. That's why salvation in this view is always framed as a gift, never a wage you earn. It's designed to be something you can only receive, not achieve. Why? Well, the text argues it's so that no one can ever turn around and boast, saying, "Hey, look what I did. I saved myself through my own hard work." But okay, this always leads to the next big question, right? If salvation is a totally free gift, then what's the point of obedience? Why do good works matter? And this, right here, is where the source material says most people get tripped up. The text basically lays out two common errors, like two ditches on either side of the road. On one side, you've got legalism. That's the belief that your obedience earns you grace, which, whoops, you just turned grace back into a wage. On the other side is antinomianism. That's the belief that grace cancels the need for obedience, which basically turns grace into a license to do whatever you want. So, to avoid falling into either ditch, the text lays out a very specific order of events, and the sequence is crucial. First, God's grace initiates. It comes to the sinner first. Then, in response, the sinner exercises what's called obedient faith. And this is key, not to earn the gift, but as the way you receive the gift. It's like opening your hands to catch something. That act of reception then allows the Spirit to come in and start transforming you from the inside out. And it's only after that transformation begins that a new kind of obedience starts to flow naturally as a result of a changed heart. So, if you take one thing away, let it be this. In this framework, grace is not just a pardon for what you did wrong in the past. It's presented as an active, living, transforming power for the present and the future. It's what makes a whole new kind of life possible. And that really leaves us with one final big question to chew on, based on everything we've just walked through. If grace really isn't just a get-out-of-jail-free card for the past, but an actual life-altering power for the future, what does a life that's been transformed by that power actually look like?